What was the toughest challenge that you had experienced in rolling out enterprise grade AI? And how did you steer your teams through it?
You know, whether it's enterprise AI or when we started early stages of digital transformation, it's normally adoption, but how do we get people to be able to experience the impact things make? When I was very early in my life, in the 20s, we launched the first ATM in India. The challenge was not the of course, we had to, build the platform and deliver it. Yeah. What's the use of delivering something if nobody adopts it? Now, to adopt people instead of going to the teller in India, rather than going to the machine, was a big adoption challenge. Something as simple as that. Today, you can't even think about, there are millions of ATMs and it's just, it won't even think. But in those days, we actually had to take people away from the teller queue, take them through one or two experiences on the ATM. After that, they never went back to the teller ever again, right? But the adoption, whether it was that, whether it was accepting the call centers, it was accepting the IVRs, whether it was accepting the internet, whether it was accepting doing things through apps on a smartphone, are all journeys. And AI adoption is also a journey because we mentally need to be ready to say, I'm going to sit into this car which doesn't have a steering wheel, and I'm sitting in the driver's seat and I'm reading the Financial Times. Now, it's going to take some time to get used to that, right? But once you get used to it and it works well, you're not going to go backwards. So I think for us, adoption is a challenge. And therefore, we also believe that we've not reached a stage where the digital experts' reasoning and acting has reached the level of, I would say, perfection. As I say often in my old sort of TQM, total quality management days, right? They've not reached Six Sigma. And the more you have to reason and take actions, there are so many variables that the human does that are cannot get fully captured by LLMs the way they are today. Will that change? Surely will. Right? But to get people to adopt, even though I'm taking you from a 2-3 sigma to a 4-5 sigma, I'm not at 6. And therefore, we call it often that we have a human in the loop, right? To help the AI agent actually achieve its objective by filling in the gap, but doing it a lot faster, a lot cheaper, but you finally still need a human in the loop. Will that change? Surely will. Will the human in the loop keep coming down? Surely will. The more unstructured data I have, the more human in the loop. The more structured data I have to do things, the less human in the loop. Can I achieve complete autonomous delivery? Surely can, right? In certain things. And certain things I can't. Just like the car example. You can't drive the autonomous car everywhere. But what fundamentally has happened to the car over the years of this approach is that the cars become smarter. It can do a lot of things to, ensure that you don't make errors and mistakes. And interestingly, it has also improved the quality of the driver, even though it's not fully autonomous. So we expect we'll improve the quality of operations. The humans involved will be less emotional, will be more data focused. And because when we did studies, the same underwriting given to multiple underwriters would result in different decisions. But when you actually have an AI getting rid of all the personal emotions of everybody and give you a recommended model for underwriting or outcome, then that human can get in the loop, add that delta, and close things faster and quicker. So if you start thinking on those lines, right, the human in the loop today is important. And it also gives people the comfort that they're finally taking the final call, which I think is both needed as well as relevant. So it's an interesting journey.
Banesh, you mentioned about adoption. This reminds me, I read a book named Mindset, written by Carmen Drake, where she writes that the psychology of success begins with our mindsets. Unless we switch from being doubters to believers, our own achievements may feel unfulfilling. So, this idea of belief versus doubt resonates more in the context of AI, where AI adoption often hinges in shifting the mindsets than deploying models. So, as a CEO, how do you cultivate the belief in AI driven transformation, especially among clients or teams who may be skeptical or even resistant to change?
Yeah. No, I think that's a fantastic point because, as a CEO, you've got to inculcate a workforce, and everybody in the workforce, not just clearly the leadership is important, but sometimes the younger workforce comes with a different way of operating. What you don't want them to do is to come and adopt the old ways. And at the same time, the old ways has certain formats, certain frameworks, certain capabilities that are good, but maybe just outdated. For example, in my mind, the way we did things in a monolithical world versus doing it in an EMAC.ai world is fundamentally different. Now, the ability for us to create the imagination environment for everybody to be able to look at the new way of doing things, I think is important. And one way that's done is when you adopt it yourself. So we've got to encourage people to actually experience it themselves. Because if they experience it themselves, that's when they actually see the power of being able to do what they do better than before. And it's not about AI and not AI. I mean, as I said earlier, you needed to make that change when you started using the smartphone in the way you do things. But the ease of doing it, are there challenges? Yes. There's a lot of fake news. There's a lot of frauds on the phone. There's a whole bunch of things going on, right? But you still have made the change in your mind to adopt it. And once you experienced it, that particular app or whatever, and you chose one over another because it achieved your objective, sometimes you chose one which is clunkier than something else, but you still like it because you're comfortable with it, right? Even changing from one app to another is your belief. So I think the ability for us to be able to actually create the environment where people are continuously able to change. And guess what? We have the best of customers in the world. There's enough of customer information coming to us all the time. Are we listening? Are we able to recognize that our customers' expectations are significantly changing? And therefore, you've got to keep yourself back to the buyer's bias. The seller's bias may be only looking at a particular platform, a particular product, a particular space. Well, the customer's on a different page and is telling you something else. Are you listening? Are you listening to the fact that I can do a lot more for you? I have a much more richer EMAC stack than anybody else in the world has. Can I do anything with that? Can I change the way that works with AI now? Because that's the next generation of change coming, right? And getting our customers to experience it, or getting our internal team, which I think is sort of, I always termed in my days as internal customers. If I get internal and external customers to be able to actually experience the power of it, they will adopt. If they're not adopting, then we got to figure out, is the platform really working or not? And then there will be some broken windows. We'll have to fix certain pieces as we go along. And that's part of change. And you've got to encourage people to make that change possible, because the worst thing you can do is get them to do it only in the way you think is right. And this is all the way from top down, right? If I think that I'm the only one who knows everything, and I'm the only one educating everybody else, and everybody else has to do it only my way, then you're not really creating an organization and learning from it and actually changing all the time to the reality. Yes, we'll make mistakes, and we'll have to change some of our vision along the way, because we all know that we have to have, and to achieve a vision, by the way, you've got to have a very clear mission too. And your mission, whether it's short term, whether it's for the year or less than a year or whatever it is, we cannot confuse the mission with the vision all the time. Otherwise, you will not step forward to the next stage of your vision, which we know is longer term, which we know is changing, not because we are asking it to change, the market is changing it. And why is the market changing it? Because they can adopt it better. So I think it's very important for us to be able to give people things where they know that the future is changing. Here's a vision. Here are some clear areas of focus. Let's rally behind that. And, and there's a mission to deliver.
So you mentioned about talent, Banesh. So as a CEO, how do you identify and nurture leadership talent, especially across the globe, working in distributed teams on AI solutions globally? How do you do that?
I mean, there's no straight equation to some of this, right? But there are a couple of things we should keep in mind. We've got to encourage people to do leadership roles. We've got to we find too many leaders doing basic stuff. I think the question is, firstly, every one of us have to find a way in which we get leaders to think a couple levels ahead of them. Maybe their boss or even their boss's boss, if they have one, right? And so just getting caught with day to day. That's number one. Number two is that leader developing enough people? Is he delegating well enough? Surely he's responsible, but he's got to delegate it in such a way that he can build people, and therefore you've got to create an environment where you will be taking some risks. You will find some people rise up and some people not rise up. You've got to help those people not rising up to understand why they're not rising up. So it's a continuous coaching, mentoring journey, right? But unless you get that line of understanding how to develop teams, you will not have enough time to think on the broader areas, because you're stuck with so much business as usual stuff, which is important. But then what's the whole organization and the large number of people under you doing, right? And you don't want to create a culture where they're just in the order-taking mode, because then you'll lack the innovation and credibility. Very often organizations don't recognize this enough and don't sometimes give enough credit. But clearly we do. And we would like to encourage younger people. We have a very good young team in Intellect AI. And most of Purple Fabric Engineering, which has been there for the last several years, is a very young team that's come up the curve and is trying to do something that's pretty much path-breaking. It's probably one of the only, it is probably the only open business impact AI platform today. Are there others? Surely they are. Are they coming up? Surely they are. But the combination of our expertise and experience, along with the platform for different products, different areas of reimagining operations, will fundamentally prepare us for a phenomenal opportunity that's just beginning to take shape. But probably not. We should measure taking shape. There's always some level of urgency that keeps creeping in, that I should be, much bigger than I am now. It's always good to have that approach and try our very best, but we have to do it in a way that's measured enough for every organization to scale up and be able to deal with, right? So I think,
Interesting. Yeah.
so to your point, how do you manage that? You actually have to keep bringing in a combination. Always inside is better than outside. But if you don't give enough opportunities for the inside to grow, then you're forced to bring lateral hires from outside. And there are some areas you just need to do it because we're not as market ready as we may want to, and therefore somebody from outside is going to bring me a lot more value. So I think it's a different way of looking at it. I remember during my sort of years working with this bank, there was a CEO who basically said, when you buy back your shares in a company, right, it also shows that you don't have enough opportunity to go to the market and earn better than the rate at which you're buying back. So I think fundamentally we have to find ourselves and say, I need to bring somebody from outside because I need to be able to embed a different set of capabilities, which for whatever reason I am not scaled up for. And we have to keep learning and scale up so that you can find more and more people who can step up to that. And that's leadership in a way. But for the individual, as long as they have passion to keep, because they have so many opportunities that the company provides. If we can take those opportunities, have the passion to continuously grow, right, and do things differently, I think we have the right culture to be able to suggest, to make things possible, to drive something, to have a phenomenal innovation journey. I think that is important. If we can do that and create that right atmosphere, a lot more will be achieved by the organization.